The Mass Effect trilogy is dizzyingly deep with an immensely detailed and intricate lore, as is expected of a BioWare universe. But there's something peculiar about a certain piece of trivia, something that should theoretically threaten the species of the galaxy, and that Mass Effect itself has set a precedent for being a problem. It's the biology and reproduction of the Asari. As you know, the Asari are all female, or at least female-coded, as they don't have a concept of gender. This is all well and good and gives the Asari a unique place in the Mass Effect universe, but there's one point that stands out to me as concerning that I feel should be a bigger talking point in the game. What happens when an Asari has a mixed-race child? Asari are capable of successfully mating with any gender. By melding their mind with their partner, they can conceive a child. Only they don't incorporate their partner's DNA. The Asari instead provide a second copy of their own DNA so that their partner's genetic code is essentially erased. To me at least, that raises a pretty big concern about the Asari gradually taking over the galaxy through some kind of genetic imperialism. If every child born from an Asari is also an Asari, regardless of their partner, then that serves to only expand the Asari population, whilst essentially erasing their partner's species on a long enough timeline. Speaking of timelines, the Asari are the longest living sentient race in the Milky Way, meaning that their population numbers will be far more expansive than their counterparts. If each of these Asari, which can live for centuries, is constantly mating and having more Asari children, this further compounds the issue of the Asari overflowing the gene pool. I'm not trying to say that the Reapers had a point or anything, but with them gone, it's entirely possible that the Asari could erase the genetic lineage of every other species in the galaxy. Now, this video is nothing more than poking fun at a small piece of trivia that I felt went under the radar, but what particularly stands out as strange to me is that Mass Effect directly tackled this problem with the Krogan and the Genophage. The overpopulation issue of the Krogan is a core part of Mass Effect's lore, and the species is defined by the consequences of the Genophage. Of course, I'm not blind to the fact there are major differences between the two. Krogan have 1,000 eggs over the course of a year, whilst Asari have a more familiar reproductive cycle. However, the end result of both is the same, a galaxy with a dominance of one species due to excessive breeding. The Asari's way of overpopulation is also more inconspicuous than the Krogans. The Asari are seen as diplomats and intellectually superior beings whose ideas are often at the forefront of galactic progress, while the Krogans were known for their militaristic might and overwhelming strength, making their threat more apparent. Now, if you're thinking, well, if the Asari are so smart and peaceful, wouldn't it be a good thing if they became the dominant race? To that I say, stop holding your right arm out like that, and that the cultural melting pots are why humanity has come so far. It's still unclear how far into the future the next Mass Effect is, but Asari overpopulation could be a core theme, shifting the focus away from the Krogan. Although I hope it's not hundreds of years in the future, as that means Garrison Tali won't be there, and can it really be a Mass Effect game without them? This problem is only going to get worse in the future decades of the galaxy, because of the peculiar bigotry shared by the Asari. Pure-blooded children are seen as inferior to mixed-race children. An Asari that has the DNA of another species is seen as superior, which raises some interesting implications for the history of the Asari. Contrary to what you may believe, no one is born evil. Racism, bigotry, and most forms of fear are all learned rather than being instinctual. So that raises the question of where bigotry came from. It's impossible to know for sure due to the ancient nature of tribalism, but my guess would be someone wanted power and framed other groups as inferior to seize that power. Sort of like how the origins of most royalty is some idiot saying their family was chosen by God. So what if, once the Asari made contact with other species and realized their genetic capacity, the rulers of ancient Asari started the stigma of purebloods being inferior as a way for their species to eventually colonize the galaxy, and that despicable belief is still held in the minds of the most powerful and influential Asari of today. But of course, this eventuality is obvious and would also be obvious to the major species of the galaxy, yet as far as I could find, this problem isn't brought up within the trilogy, which leads me to believe that this stigma might be born of a purer place. As well as avoiding the threat of Ardat Yakshi, the Asari are naturally intelligent creatures and are defined by their quest for more knowledge, so it would stand that mating with other species would further their cultural quest to learn, as those children would inherit the qualities of their parent species, and might have a new way of thinking or making discoveries that pure-blood Asari would never even consider. As they already have thousands of years of history of pure-blood Asari, there might simply be nothing left to learn from them. And that's why purebloods are seen as inferior, because there's no further knowledge they can provide. But when you look at all the evidence of their reproductive system and extended lifespan, it certainly stands to reason that the Asari would become the only race left in the galaxy, and with the Reapers gone, there's nothing left to stop them. For more Mass Effect essays, here's one about why Mass Effect 2's party were never friends, and I'll be back in 2 days.